sunshines, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Lydia and I'm a year 4 communication student in NUS. If you haven't seen yet, I have a whole bunch of other exchange videos up on my channel, including one where I give you the packing guide for winter to summer exchanges, so you can click somewhere up top. And I also have a podcast where I talked about moving out of Netherlands, so if you're interested in that, then go ahead and click in the description below and you can listen to my podcast all about that. I'm gonna give it to you up front right away. So the total amount that I spent on exchange in euros was 7,100 euros and 96 cents. This isn't including airfare or the first and last month's rent, but let's just break it down and see how much of this roughly 9.9 thousand Sing dollars went throughout my 5.5 months in Netherlands. The very first category that I had is daily essentials. For this category, I spent about 268 euros. To me, daily essentials was kind of defined by all my homeware things like pots and pans, utensils, things that I had to buy when I first moved into my dorm for living. This also includes stuff like laundry costs, my bath products like shampoo, conditioner, etc. and also my bedding, which I bought one shot when I went over. One of my big tips would be to, if you have roommates, share and split the cost with them. It's very intuitive anyway. Naturally, if you're staying with roommates, you would probably be sharing things already, and if it's utensils or cookware that you guys are going to be using very often, almost every day anyway, it just makes sense to ask them to split and share the cost. My tip that I have after living there for a couple of months is that actually you can get some of these stuff basically for free. I did find out that there are certain Facebook groups that just give away things for free from people who no longer need these items anymore, or they're clearing out their house or they're moving house and they want to get rid of items. And as I was exploring these pages, I realized that a lot of them had to do with homewares. So I think if I had known that, it's worth a try to explore some of these pages, and that will really help to save on one-time costs. The very next category is food. So for food, I spent a total of 1,613 euros. This is inclusive of both eating out and all of the grocery runs that I had to do throughout my time there. The tip for reducing spending on food is to not eat out so much, but I understand that, of course, being in a new place, you'd want to try all the different types of food and cuisines. Also, a lot of social activities are organized around food. This is the same for every single country. But I found for me what worked the best was to, instead of going out so much or like visiting a lot of different types of restaurants and cafes. I mean, I'm the kind of person that likes to stay at home a lot anyway and like experiment different recipes while I could, having my own pantry and kitchen and stuff. So I would suggest that maybe you can invite people over to your house instead and have dinner parties together, and that way you could also have fun activities like cooking dinners together. It's another way to cut down a bit on the eating out portion, which can add up, especially if you like a bit of nightlife. I feel like drinks particularly, they do add up if you're buying different rounds and doing bar hopping, for example. Another thing that I find really useful for cutting down expenses on food is to get to know the different apps that you can use that help to cut food wastage, because most often they also offer a discount for people buying those soon to be expired but not yet food. My go-to app for that was Too Good To Go, which was introduced to me by a friend on Instagram actually. I believe it is somewhat used around Europe because I know it's available in London, and it was definitely very widely used in Rotterdam as well. I got quite a few boxes from them before. You can check out my videos here where I do like a mini review in one of my vlogs. And for the low price of anywhere between 3 to 10 euros depending on the store, you can get quite a lot of food that can last you for weeks. You can freeze them, you can put it in the fridge, or you can just ration them out so that you have a nice mix of like cooked food and also outside food to last you throughout the week. As for groceries, I went to the fresh market a lot that happened twice a week, and my biggest hack, I guess, is that people usually mark down things at closing times, which For Rotterdam Market is around 4 to 5. Some stalls close earlier, some stalls close later. But around that time is when everyone wants to pack up and go home. And that's when they start like discounting stuff like crazy, and there'll be people yelling. One, it's an experience. Two, you do get discounted fresh groceries, vegetables, fruits, even snacks as well. They also had bread at the market, so it's really like a whole range. In my experience, I think 25 to 30 euros per week is enough to sustain yourself. If you do a combination of market grocery shopping, topping it up with supermarket groceries for your dry goods and your shelf-stable products like canned food and sauces and whatnot, and also the occasional treat if you want to go out to a cafe or restaurant with your friends. In the next category, we have health and wellness. This category came up to a total of 372 euros. Health and wellness I categorized as things like all my skincare, beauty related products, sports related expenses as well. I feel like one great way to keep the expenses down for this category is to keep an eye out for student related deals. My gym pass I got from Erasmus University itself because they have a student sports center and they offer like a range of classes taught by external professional coaches like HIIT or Pilates. They even had ballet and boxing classes as well. Because of that, I didn't have to go and buy like an external gym pass or anything, and I had access to a lot of different types of fitness classes that were good enough variety for me, and I didn't feel very bored with it, and I didn't have to stick to just one type of class like a full yoga package at an outside studio, which is catered to a much different crowd like adult working professionals who have more disposable income. So I feel like that was really useful. As for skincare and beauty stuff, honestly, if I had to go back and do it again, I would have probably just brought over more of my own skincare. I do think that Asian skincare or just like Asian products do have a premium on them when they're imported into Europe, and personally, being an Asian myself, I definitely prefer Asian targeted skincare. So I would have brought a little bit more over with me so that I didn't have to buy more when stuff like my cleanser ran out or moisturizers and sunscreen. Moving on to phone. Apparently for phone, I spent a total of 96 euros. I was on a Lebara monthly phone plan. I can't remember the full details, but I can put the data and minutes and call numbers up here. From my experience, I felt like I didn't really need any more, to be honest. I would only top up very, very occasionally on the data itself if I was traveling within Europe and I felt like I just needed more in case of directions or whatever. I barely used the text. Very rarely also used the phone call unless I was trying to get in touch with Netherlands administration or something like that. Next is rent. As I said before, I did not pay for the first and the last month because I paid that before coming over. The total amount for that is 1,681 euros, which is quite a bomb. Each month was roughly 560 euros, which I feel like is a really fair price for the amount of space that I got. It's quite spacious, at least compared to what I'm used to in Singapore. With the housing crisis in Netherlands right now, and even before I came over, of course, I do think overall it's a really great deal and I wouldn't have changed anything. But of course that makes student accommodations, I would say, extremely high in demand. If you happen to be looking for housing on campus, make sure that you are the fastest fingers first because that's the only surefire guarantee to get student housing. Next, my favorite category is the shopping one. For that, I spent 488 euros in total. Shopping includes things like getting new clothes, any trinkets, or just random items that I wanted to bring back with me to Singapore. If you're someone who likes buying things like me, I really feel you. There's no doubt that I could have cut down on some of it, I'm sure. There's always place to reduce and buy less, but I don't think that there's anything wrong with a once in a while shopping jaunt or a little shopping treat. I actually really liked going thrifting in Rotterdam specifically. I feel like the thrifting scene in Rotterdam and Amsterdam is great because it's just very accessible. When I went to the markets on Tuesdays or Saturdays, there were always stalls that were selling secondhand clothes or these little antique tables, and they're really interesting to look through. Also, they come at a lower price because they've been used before. Also, I liked looking at Vinted, which is an online secondhand platform, kind of like Singapore's Carousel, and I got a few items from there that I really like, and I think that I will actually wear for like a very long time. The next category is transport, and for that I spent 611 euros. I have to say transport ended up being way more expensive than I thought it was gonna be. Even though I had a bike, I ended up having my first bike stolen, so I had to go and get a second one. And even so, with a bike, my transport cost still added up. I feel like it's because travel between cities like Rotterdam to Amsterdam, for example, is still pretty pricey, even though it's very fast and convenient. I was on a NS Flex plan, which is kind of like a discount subscription plan that you can get via the country's like national public transport system. What I would have done is to upgrade my subscription actually, because that plan only allowed me to have discounts on trains during weekends, because when I bought it I had assumed that I was only going to be traveling on weekends anyway. So if you do think that your plans are going to be much more flexible and that you're going to be traveling around during the week as well, which I feel most people are, then just upgrade to a better subscription plan that you can get discounts for during off-peak hours on weekdays, for example. And all of the details can be found in the NS website. Also, I found that the best secondhand bike deals were typically on Facebook Marketplace. We have to be really careful about that because you just don't really know if it's stolen or not, but trust your gut, you know, you can kind of tell when things are a bit fishy. The seller doesn't look like a real person at all, or if it's just selling for dirt cheap, then try to stay away. But for Marketplace, which is consumer to consumer versus like a secondhand bike shop, I do think that the prices were a little bit cheaper, and I was able to get both of my bikes at way less than 100 euros. So it was a good deal, I feel, overall. But definitely get a good strong lock to lock your bikes, otherwise you'll be sorry. Even with my strong lock, mine still got stolen, so stay safe. For travel, this category, I spent a total of 1,781 euros, but I'm gonna go ahead and round that up to 1.9k euros because there are some transactions that I did on my Singapore DBS card that if I go through conversion and stuff, it's around 1.9k euros. Travel category includes stuff like my flight tickets or bus or train tickets, anything to do with like traveling to the destination and traveling within the destination, of course. Also accommodations, and for the most part, I would say like 70 to 80% of the purchases that I made on the trip itself, like food, souvenir shopping, or like shopping as well, I would have put it into travel, but because I'm a little bit disorganized, so some of those also made it to the separate food and shopping category that we talked about earlier. It does have, I feel like, the bulk of the purchases that I made on the trip itself. For flight tickets, I went through Skyscanner all of the time. I didn't take any Ryanair flights on my exchange. I just can't advise on that, though I have heard that Ryanair just really offers very dirt cheap tickets. I just use Skyscanner because it really easily like compares all of the different flights and prices available at the time. For accommodations, mostly I used Airbnb. I know that hostels are an option, but because I would be traveling with like a friend, we were okay with staying at Airbnbs that gave us our own room but also had like the landlady or the landlord inside. So after splitting the cost, it wasn't all that expensive. Also, as a matter of fact, I didn't travel super crazily when I was in Netherlands, so yeah, definitely cutting down on travel helps as well. It's just not my preference. I feel once I got there, I realized that I kind of like staying at home, so I didn't travel to quite as many places as some other people did, but that's all just preference, so of course, whatever suits you. The very last category I have is called Other, and for this I spent 185 euros. This category is all of the stuff like the souvenirs, gifts for people that I bought for other people, and it's mostly very traditional like Dutch things or just like postcards, little gifts that I wanted to give to my friends and family when I was back. If y'all are curious, my round trip to Netherlands and back cost 876 Sing dollars. I did get it on the SQ, like I have an education account because I'm still a student, so it's a little bit discounted, and I got 40 kg worth of luggage, which I think is a really great deal, so I'm not complaining about the price at all. I think it was very fair. And as for the sources of money for this trip, I'm very fortunate and very privileged that my parents did and were able to fund me for a large portion of it. I also used, of course, some of my own savings, and I applied for the NASA scholarship within, I think it's EduRec portal, which they give for students going overseas on any school-related exchange programs or initiatives. I do know a couple of other people who also got the same scholarship awarded. It's not really a scholarship, it's more like a grant almost, or like a bursary, because there's no bond to it. You don't need to fulfill anything afterwards, but you just need to demonstrate your aptitude and kind of like why you want this cash and how it's going to help you to fund your exchange and your experiences overseas. So that's my entire video revealing exactly or almost exactly how much I spent on exchange. I know that everyone has different expectations or different standards as to how much they spend, so don't take me as a benchmark. This is just all of my own personal experience. I hope that you take away what works for you or that you found it a bit interesting, and I hope to see you very soon. Bye!